One of the members of Congress is our own Brad Knott. He joins us this morning. How you doing today, sir?
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Did you find it difficult not to get thrown out of the House chamber yesterday because some of your colleagues did?
It was a privilege to be there. We were all disappointed. Those of us who were sitting on the Republican side, it must have been 45 seconds, and Al Green stood up and was berating the president. And truth be told, I think even some of the Democrats were a little bit mortified at what they saw. But all in all, it was just a blip. I thought the speech was wonderful. The energy on the Republican side was pretty high, and it was a privilege to be there.
What do you think it accomplished? Because again, it's a speech not for you guys necessarily; it's for the American people. The president said that, and it seemed to be pretty well received. But I don't know that it was new information. It was a victory lap. I think people are calling it a victory lap. Less than 6 weeks into an administration, what do you think it accomplishes?
Well, it was from a procedural standpoint. It filled the slot of a traditional State of the Union, and it served several purposes. I think it showed all of us that the president is not running to be a ceremonial president. He was focused in the campaign. He has certainly been focused ever since January 20th, and he went right down the same list of priorities that he has been championing for the last several months to years. And the speech was appropriately very much focused domestically. He listed off whether it was the wasteful spending that he and Elon Musk have identified, whether it was securing our border, highlighting that his policies are working. We are at the lowest point ever in terms of illegal crossings. He gave great credence to the no tax on tips. He was highlighting his desire to change the energy policy. He wants to get the regulatory policy back in order. He wants to get all of the taxes passed soon. He's reminding Congress that if we don't act, there's going to be a $4.5 trillion tax increase on every American. And if anything, it just reminded everybody that the president is focused. He's working. He's trying to deliver for the country. And at least for me, in my congressional seat, it was almost a reminder, I'm doing my part, and you guys in Congress, you better be doing yours too. And,
Well,
and then
that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, are you guys going to be able to? Because I mean, let's face it, we're talking about continuing resolutions at the same time we're talking about insane spending stuff. Like the list you just referenced is crazy. We've talked about it here on the
yeah,
show, and that sounds like a disconnect in some people's minds. So, does Congress have a plan to right size the government under their required powers, the power of the purse? That's you guys. So
yeah.
explain to me how you enact what the president's laying out so that there's not these contradictory things.
Great question, and the short answer is yes, we do have a plan. One of the frustrating parts that I've seen in Congress is I wish we could move faster across the board. But when you have a Senate, when you have the House of Representatives, and when the majority that we have is as small as it is, and you have very little wiggle room to fluctuate with. You when you're in Congress, you got to really focus on the issues that we can get into a bill. Hope the Senate will accept it and then send it to the president. And right now, the White House is seeing we are making good progress with the reconciliation. We are trying to get everything, and I say everything, into one big bill. That's a tremendous task just from a topic standpoint. And, I don't know what I'm going to do with the continuing resolution if one is proposed. The White House has already telegraphed that they think that's the most responsible short-term fix while we negotiate and fix the taxes and the regulations and the border policy, et cetera. But to answer your question, there's absolutely feverish work trying to get this one big bill that the president wants through and to his desk before the summer. And again, when you've got a majority as slim as the House of Representatives, just to put it into an image, you have a Republican who's in a what's called an R plus 30, the Republican 30 district. And then you've got a New York who's in a Democrat plus 2 district, a New York Republican. And we really don't have any leeway. We can lose 1 or 2 votes, and that's it. But when you've got a conference that's as diverse as ours, with a majority that's as slim as ours, that can complicate things. But the president is leading. We're putting the bill together, and we believe that we'll be able to pass it before the summer.
What do you think? Because you've been up there, just to be clear, you've been up there for about 5 minutes, right? Because you were sworn in. You were sworn in January. What a Congress to get sworn into. Talk to me. I know you have nothing to compare it against, but it's drinking from a fire hose right now, and this is how you're learning how to be a congressman. So, explain how that works for you, and what your day is like, and how you're able to figure out how it used to be different. Talking to some of the other members.
Well, I'll start from in reverse. It used to be different. The level of vitriol on between parties was not nearly as high as it is currently, and that's been something that really has been upsetting, and something that I wish we could reverse. Candidly, I think America got a snapshot of it last night. There were lots of things that the president said that traditionally even the Democrats would have stood and applauded for. There were lots of moments in that speech, or even in the whole evening. For instance, when his cabinet was introduced, traditionally both parties stand for the recognition of his cabinet. That did not happen last night. When the president recognized a young man who had overcome tremendous odds with brain cancer and was given a ceremonial badge to the Secret Service, the Democrats didn't stand up. When a young man by the name of Jason Hartley was announced to have been accepted at West Point, his father was slain in law enforcement. He is a third generation. Now he'll be a third-generation service member for our Army. The Democrats didn't stand up. And I don't quite know what to make of that because, candidly, and this is probably even more upsetting, when the cameras are off, the vitriol goes down and the resentment goes down. It's almost kind of a perfunctory for-show act that the Democrats, I don't want to be too broad, not all of them, but the ones that we all know of and the ones that we saw last night, by and large, were acting in that way. But walking home from the speech, I saw some Democrats, and their countenance was completely different. They were friendly. They were engaging. So I'm not sure what to make of that. But in terms of me getting my sea legs under us, we agree with most of what the president outlined. We believe that the folks wanted change in November. They voted for it. Everything from men getting out of women's locker rooms, men getting off of women's teams, to the taxes, and the spending is just outrageous. It's more outrageous now that we have the lights on than it was even during the campaign when we were just talking about it hypothetically. And we have built a staff. We are on good committees. And we're trying to work in unison both within our own office, within the committees, and then with the White House to get these things done. And it's been fascinating to see it kind of behind the scenes, to be sure.
Here's what I can't wrap my head around, and let me go back to what you just said. All of these crazy spending things, right? Where they're like, oh, look, we found out that we spent $10 million to shove marbles up cats' rear ends and then electrocute them, right? Which is a thing. Right. That's a thing. That's one of the things. And I, for the life of me, I can't understand why there's not a Democrat member of Congress on record going, hey, do you think this is a good way to spend $10 million? They have not been asked to weigh in on this. Have you had a conversation with one of your colleagues where even one of your Democrat colleagues is like, nah, transgender operas in Columbia is probably not the best use of our money? Are they honest, at least in private, that that's insane?
I think, guys, they have made such a villain out of President Trump. If you remember, during his first term, they accused him of essentially working with Putin to overturn the government.
I know.
And accused him of being just a vicious, evil person. And he clearly is not. Everything that they said about him in Russia was a lie. But the viciousness and the vitriol towards him has only grown. And unfortunately, if there's anything that the president is doing, I have not had any specific interactions where they will even give the first card in his favor. And I think it's because as a party, they just cannot accept that someone who they think is as odious as President Trump could do anything that is in the right direction. And
well, you're not restoring my faith in humanity here. Like, you're not doing a very good job of it. So
the most I've gotten out of, when I say I've gotten, the most I've heard in conversation is they will say something along the lines of, well, we could always clean up spending, but they're going about it the wrong way. That's kind of the baseline in private response. But there's no acknowledgement that how he's going about it is effective. There's no acknowledgement that it's not just a little bit with spending that we've got to do. It's $36 trillion in total, $2 trillion a year. Things like spending tens of billions of dollars giving free health care to illegals, things like that most Americans find outrageous. The other party is simply not in lockstep with the American people, and that is certainly the case that I've observed in Washington.
Let me ask you. We're chatting with Congressman Brad Knott about the president's speech last night, but there's two other things I want to talk about. One, the Zelensky meeting, right? Holy cow! What a Friday that was. It's after the show, so then I get the whole weekend to digest it. Everyone's watching it play out. Where are we at on that? And by the way, you don't think Putin's a good guy, right? Because that's the narrative. That's the narrative now. That obviously, if you thought Zelensky, I'm of the camp that I don't understand. I think Chris Murphy, your Senate colleague, and others like gin this dude up, and he walked in and absolutely suicided himself in that meeting. There's no fathomable reason to take that approach. That being said, the narrative then is you then have to assume that everybody loves Putin and the Republicans love Putin up there. So do you love Putin? Do you think he's a good guy? Or where are you at on this Zelensky, Ukraine, all of this stuff?
Again, in reverse, Putin is a vicious, murdering dictator in Russia who is an absolute adversary. He's a threat to our country. He's a threat to Europe. That can absolutely be true. But also what President Trump is attempting to achieve is a durable peace in Ukraine. This war has been going on for years. There is absolutely no plan from either side to land the plane, so to speak, to achieve peace. Putin, for all of his flaws, he did recognize President Trump the first term. There was no military effort on his end. He annexed Crimea under Barack Obama. He began this war after the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal under President Biden. And he has at least come to the table and has signaled willingness to engage in peace talks. The part that President Trump has recognized with Ukraine is that the American public should not be the world's ATM with conflict. And when we have spent hundreds of billions of dollars on Ukraine, for what purpose going forward? When there's no plan to win, there's no plan to land the plane into durable peace. President Trump has seized this narrative, and he mentioned it last night. He gave credence to the fact it was a difficult conversation on Friday. He did not want it to go that way. However, when President Zelensky cannot even muster the manners to say thank you in the Oval Office, when he can't look at the American taxpayer and say how much he appreciates it, when he wants to challenge President Trump's ideas in a way that is absolutely ungrateful and disrespectful, that was not the time to move forward. And President Zelensky, to his credit, sent the president a letter that the president read last night, and he is ready to engage. He is ready to sign the minerals deal. He's ready to work creatively to have a lasting peace. And just from a strategic standpoint, the president, the president's plan of economic development and rare earth metals and minerals extracted from Ukraine, that's $1 trillion economic pact with Ukraine. There could be no greater assurance from a security standpoint been placing American civilian businesses and engineering companies and extraction companies in Ukraine. And so the president is trying his best to help Ukraine out. He's going to develop their economy. He's going to recoup some money for the taxpayers. He will enrich Ukrainians. He will enrich Americans. And he's all in on it. And thankfully, the letter that he read to the Congress last night,
Right.
it seems like progress is being made from Zelensky.
Okay.
I will say
I got 10
it's
seconds,
worth noting,
Congressman. Yeah.
just real quickly, the only applause that the Democrats gave was for Ukraine. That was it.
Well, and if we're going to go forward with this, and that is in America's interest, and I think people are there. Congressman Brad Knott, appreciate it, and we will be right back.